Hey droners, and welcome to a special edition episode today. What I want to talk to you guys today about is drone permitting. And yes, this can be a pain in your gluteus, but it's necessary for you to go through your P's and Q's as a commercial pilot and saying that, hey, I want to be a professional pilot. People are going to be paying me to be flying drone. That means you need to have your ish together. And that means obviously talking to the locations you're going to be flying and making sure they know you're flying, as well as making sure you talk to the municipalities that are governing the areas to do that. Because Part 107 does give us a guideline of regulations of what we're supposed to do, but it also leaves municipalities to have a space to allow local municipalities to govern drone and drone usage in their area. So you got to make sure wherever you're flying, you call the local film office, call the local worst case scenario police department if they don't have a film office, if they don't have a film commission that can give you anybody. The last line of defense is always going to be the police department. But either way, you got to make sure you talk to people, which leads me into a story of even if you do everything right, sometimes it just don't matter. I was flying for one of my clients. I was in South Carolina. And we were flying and we were capturing a bridge that was very iconic to the city we were shooting in. When we were flying out to the bridge, we were having a tailwind. So that means that the wind was pushing us out, so we were going faster than you normally would be able to fly out, which we noticed. We got our shots, had about a little over 60% battery and said, okay, let's bring the bird back. We started bringing it back and the wind picks up and the battery is draining. And we're like, okay, all right, we're gonna make it, it's fine. You get to that 25% warning or 30% warning on your Inspire, that's what we were flying. Things get a little bit iffy. Now in front of us, about 30 feet up, is some wires on a power line. And we also are standing in front of a street with a marsh right there in front of us. And we're bringing it in for the landing. We're about 500 yards away, and guess who rolls up on us at this moment? A police officer. Police officer rolls up, gets out of his car and says, IDs now. Now, the police officer decided the best place for him to stand when he said that was going to be directly in the middle of the only place that we could safely land outside of landing on a street that actually did have traffic. So my first response is, I'm reaching into my pocket, officer, and I'm going to give you this ID, but we need you to stand back because you're standing in the middle of our landing spot. His response, you don't tell me what to do. The pilot, Dom, is looking over his shoulder like, hey, I'm bringing this in for an emergency landing. We're having critical battery failure. This is the only place we can land. And he's standing right there, so he has to abort the original landing path and fly up and over the wires and land it behind us. The officer at that point aggressively decides to pretty much rush him because he's like, what are you guys doing? Like all up in our stuff. He tries to go up and over the wires while the officer's approaching him, and he just barely nicks that wire and then gets the drone caught on the wire. Wow, great day. And apparently we could have gotten in a lot of trouble because we were flying from a place that didn't have any signs that was federal property. Don't do that, guys. Do not fly on federal property, ever. Make sure you check if you can, which we thought we did. But either way, long story short, if we didn't have the permit, if we didn't have our insurance, and if we didn't have the actual permission to shoot specifically what we were shooting, we could have been in a lot of trouble. But we had all that, and we also had the paperwork on us. So the officer pretty much ended up helping us get it off the wire by calling in a lineman to do it because he knew it was his fault that we had a mistake in the first place and that he was not being a friend to us at all, and we had followed our P's and Q's and done our things right. So take this lesson, droners. Make sure you always have your documentation if you're doing commercial flights, because if you don't, you'll be the one who's screwed. Lesson of the day. Droners, thank you for checking out this episode of my rant that I unnecessarily had my laptop here for. And if you want to see more really cool drone videos, you can click here because this is the original one that tells us who we are. Or you can click here to see more dope list-like videos because that's what we do. And if you would please go ahead and subscribe or check out our Patreon page to support us because that's what allows us to do. And just do me the favor and make sure you stay fly.